The gun store clerk laughed the moment she asked for a tactical rifle. "Sweetheart, maybe start with something pink?" But 60 minutes later, his hands were shaking. Who was this woman, really? She looked like someone searching for a yoga studio. Soft voice, clean sneakers, hair tied back like a librarian. But then she asked for a Barrett M82A1 by full designation, range, specs, mil-dot reticle, no hesitation. The laughter stopped. Veterans leaned in, and a man in the corner, once a captain, now a ghost, turned pale. This wasn't about buying a gun. This was about respect, revenge, and the truth she carried in silence for 3 years. Because today, Ghost 6 didn't come to hide. She came to end something. And someone in that store knew exactly why, because he had put a bullet through her name and called it justice. Stay with me. You're about to witness the reckoning. Standing outside Tactical Solutions Pro Shop, Sarah Mitchell steadies her breathing. 3 years of therapy, meditation, civilian life, all preparation for this moment. The nightmares still come. Explosions, gunfire, Reynolds' voice on the radio. She touches the encrypted drive in her pocket. 3 years of investigation. Just get the confession, she whispers to herself. Her reflection in the store window shows a stranger. Blonde hair instead of military brown. Soft features instead of war-hardened edges. But beneath the surface, Ghost 6 waits. The store sits on Main Street like a fortress of masculinity. Tactical Solutions Pro Shop isn't your average gun store. This is where cops come for their off-duty weapons, where federal agents test new equipment, where military contractors spend 5 figures without blinking. The walls display everything from standard Glocks to military-grade sniper systems. Certificates of authenticity line the walls, photos of the owner with generals and police chiefs. This is a place where expertise matters, where your credentials determine your worth, where being taken seriously requires either a badge or a DD-214. Sarah pushes through the heavy glass door. She's wearing what she carefully selected this morning: faded jeans, a plain gray t-shirt, white sneakers. Her small purse hangs from her shoulder. No tactical clothing, no military bearing, no hint of the warrior beneath. She speaks quietly, politely, the way her therapist taught her. "Excuse me, I'm looking for something specific." Her voice barely carries across the store. When the men turn to look, they see exactly what she wants them to see. A young woman, maybe 24, pretty in an unremarkable way, probably lost on her way to the mall. Behind the counter stands Mike, the head clerk, former police officer, 40-something, still wearing his confidence like body armor. His assistant, barely out of high school, shadows his every move, learning how to be a man in this temple of firepower. The manager, Tom, a Vietnam veteran with sharp eyes and steady hands, is in his office, dealing with inventory. The store has its own hierarchy, its own rules, and Sarah has just entered at the bottom. In the corner, reading a magazine about tactical equipment, sits James Reynolds. Well-dressed, graying at the temples, the kind of man who gets respectful nods from everyone. Tom had greeted him earlier. "Morning, Captain, the usual coffee?" Reynolds had nodded, but he seems distracted today, checking his phone more than usual. When Sarah mentions specific weapon designations, his magazine lowers slightly. Something about her voice, maybe. Something familiar that he can't quite place. Sarah approaches the counter during the afternoon rush. 3 other customers browse the rifle section. 2 more debate ammunition types. She waits patiently until Mike notices her. "I'm looking for an advanced tactical rifle," she says, "something used by special operations." Mike's reaction is immediate and predictable. The laughter comes from his belly, genuine amusement at the absurdity. "Sweetheart, these aren't toys. Maybe try the sporting goods store down the street. They've got some nice 20 Turos that won't bruise your shoulder." The dismissal begins gently, almost kindly. Mike suggests starter weapons, mentions that they have some models in pink if she's interested. "Your boyfriend probably sent you in here as a joke," he says, and the other customers begin to notice, some smirking at the scene. Sarah doesn't defend herself. She doesn't leave. She just stands there, silent, observing. In the corner, Reynolds shifts uncomfortably. There's something about her stillness, the way she absorbs the mockery without flinching. He's seen that before, in places where flinching meant death. Her questions, when she asks them, are quiet but specific, too specific for someone who learned about guns from movies. She asks about twist rates and effective ranges, about glass quality and mil-dot calculations. Mike answers with increasing condescension, but Reynolds is no longer reading. He's watching her hands, steady, patient, positioned exactly where his training tells him a professional keeps them, away from pockets, visible but relaxed, ready without seeming ready. The other customers have formed a loose semicircle now, drawn by the entertainment of watching Mike educate this naive young woman about the serious world of firearms. Someone makes a joke about her probably wanting something to match her purse. Another suggests she'd be better off with pepper spray. Sarah's expression never changes. She's cataloging faces, memorizing positions, noting exits. Reynolds sees it because he's done it himself 1,000 times, in places where knowing your environment meant surviving another day. How would you even know that designation? Mike asks when she mentions a specific model number that civilians shouldn't know. The question hangs in the air. Reynolds quietly closes his magazine, giving the interaction his full attention now. Something is about to happen. He can feel it in the air, the way you can feel a storm coming before the first drops fall. But Mike was about to learn something about assumptions, something that would haunt him for years to come. Mike calls over his shoulder to the other customers, his voice carrying that particular tone of a man about to share a good joke. "Hey guys, check this out. We've got ourselves a real operator here." 4 or 5 men drift over, drawn by the promise of entertainment. The jokes start flowing like cheap beer at a frat party. "Does your boyfriend know you're here playing soldier?" one asks. Another chimes in with mock concern. "Maybe we should call your daddy to come get you, sweetheart." Sarah stands in the center of their amusement, an island of stillness in an ocean of mockery. No visible reaction, no trembling lip or flushed cheeks. Just those eyes, watching everything, recording everything. From his corner, Reynolds watches her watching them, and something cold crawls up his spine. The store has become a theater, and Sarah is the unwilling star of a comedy she didn't audition for. Other customers stop their shopping to watch. Someone pulls out a phone, probably thinking this will make great social media content. Sarah is completely alone against a wall of masculine hostility, but she doesn't step back, doesn't look for an escape route. Mike feeds off the audience approval like an actor who's finally found his spotlight. Each laugh makes him bolder, each chuckle validates his performance. Then Mike crosses the line. He reaches up to the display and pulls down a pink hunting rifle, the kind marketed to teenage girls whose fathers want to bond over deer season. "Here's something more your speed," he says, affecting a baby voice that would be insulting to an actual child. "It's pretty, and it matches your nail polish, see? It even has a little cushion for your delicate shoulder." The crowd erupts in laughter, though some of them look uncomfortable now, sensing that this has gone too far but not wanting to break rank. For the first time, Sarah shows a reaction, just the slightest tightening of her jaw, a muscle movement so small that only someone trained to read micro-expressions would notice. Reynolds notices. He stands up from his chair and starts moving toward the counter, though he's not sure why. Sarah's voice cuts through the laughter like a blade through silk. "I need to see the Barrett M82A1. The words are spoken quietly, but they land like a thunderclap. Mike's laughter catches in his throat. "The what?" "Listen, sweetheart, you don't even know what you're asking for. That's not something we just pull off the shelf for—" She interrupts him, something she hasn't done until now. "Barrett M82A1, 50 caliber anti-material rifle, effective range over 1,800 meters. I need to see one." The crowd goes quiet. That's not movie knowledge. That's not something you pick up from video games. That's serious military hardware, the kind of weapon that can punch through engine blocks from a mile away. Reynolds freezes mid-step, his face draining of color like someone pulled a plug. The silence is broken by a new voice, gravelly with age and authority. Tom, the store manager, has emerged from his office. 55 years old, Vietnam veteran, the kind of man who can smell combat experience the way a sommelier can detect notes of oak in wine. He'd heard the weapon designation from his office, and more importantly, he'd heard the way she'd said it, like someone asking to see an old friend. "Miss," he says, approaching the counter with measured steps. "That's a very specific request. May I ask why you'd need to see that particular weapon? Reynolds quickly retreats to his corner, suddenly very interested in his magazine again, though his hands are shaking too much to hold it steady. The crowd's dynamics shift like a school of fish sensing a shark. Mike still maintains his confident posture, but uncertainty creeps into his voice. Tom, this girl's just playing pretend. She probably saw it in some movie, and... Tom raises a hand, and Mike falls silent. Sarah addresses Tom directly, and for the first time, there's something beneath the calm surface of her voice. Not emotion exactly, but weight, history. I need something familiar, she says. Tom studies her face, the way he once studied the jungle for signs of ambush. Familiar how, he asks, though something in his expression suggests he's beginning to understand. Reynolds' hands are visibly shaking now as he pretends to read, the magazine rustling like autumn leaves. Tom's studying her face more carefully now, and Sarah can see the exact moment when recognition starts to dawn. His eyes widen slightly, his breath catches. "What's your name, miss?" he asks, though his tone suggests he already suspects the answer. "Sarah Mitchell," she replies, and the name hangs in the air like a ghost. Tom's face goes pale, the blood draining away as if someone had opened a valve. "Mitchell," he repeats, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, as in Ghost 6 Mitchell. Mike looks between them, confused and irritated at losing control of his show. "What the hell is Ghost 6? He demands. From across the store comes the crash of Reynolds dropping his magazine, the sound sharp as a gunshot in the tense silence. Tom's voice drops to a whisper that somehow carries to every corner of the store. "You're supposed to be dead." For the first time since entering the store, Sarah allows herself a real response, a slight, sad smile that speaks of graves that hold empty coffins and families that mourn the living. "Officially I am," she says, and the words carry the weight of 1,000 untold stories. The store falls completely silent, the kind of quiet that usually only comes at 3 in the morning when even the city holds its breath. Reynolds is backing toward the exit now, but the crowd has thickened near the door, trapping him like a deer in headlights. The recognition spreads across Reynolds' face like a plague. He knocks over his coffee cup in his haste to stand, the brown liquid spreading across the small table like blood on sand. Tom notices the commotion. "Captain, you all right?" he asks, but Reynolds can't answer. His throat has closed up, his voice trapped behind a wall of guilt and fear. I just remembered an appointment," he manages to croak out. "Important meeting, can't be late." But as he fumbles with his keys, Sarah's eyes find him across the store. For one eternal moment, their gazes lock, and in that instant, Reynolds knows that she knows. The hunter has found her prey. His hands shake so badly that his keys fall to the floor with a clatter that sounds like 30 pieces of silver. The crowd's confusion is palpable, electric. Mike, still clinging to his role as the alpha male, tries to reassert control. "What the hell is going on here? Tom, why are you acting like—" But Tom is backing away slowly, the instinctive movement of a man who's suddenly realized he's been poking a sleeping tiger. "That designation," he says, his voice hollow, "it's classified. The only people who know that exact model number are—" He trails off, unable or unwilling to finish the sentence. Sarah finishes it for him. "People who've used one," she says simply. "I just need to buy a rifle, Tom. That's all." But her words are belied by the weight in the room, the sense that everyone present is witnessing something far more significant than a simple commercial transaction. Tom's entire demeanor has transformed. The casual authority of a store owner has been replaced by something between respect and fear. "Ma'am?" he starts, then stops, unsure how to proceed. "I didn't know you were—" Sarah cuts him off gently. "No one was supposed to know. That was the whole point." Mike, still clueless but beginning to sense that the power dynamic has shifted dramatically, looks between them like a spectator at a tennis match. Reynolds remains frozen by the door, trapped between the crowd and his desperate need to escape, sweat now visibly beading on his forehead despite the store's air conditioning. Tom knows the name, but it's clear he doesn't know the full story. His knowledge is fragmentary, built from rumors and half-heard tales. The news said you were KIA in Syria, he says, testing the waters of what's real and what's legend. 3 years ago, Operation Nightfall? Sarah's expression doesn't change, but something in her eyes goes cold and distant. The news said what they needed to say, she replies. Sometimes the truth is more complicated than what fits in a headline. The crowd is hungry for more information now, their earlier mockery forgotten in the face of this unfolding mystery. Reynolds listens to every word like a man hearing his own death sentence being read. What do you think happened to Sarah Mitchell? Drop your theories in the comments below. Mike's ego won't let him accept this reversal without a fight. This is ridiculous, he insists, his voice too loud in the quiet store. Some girl walks in here with a military nickname and suddenly everyone's acting like she's some kind of... Tom tries to signal him to stop, making cutting motions across his throat, but Mike is beyond reason now. I don't care what kind of stories you've made up. Some girl with a code name doesn't scare me. Tom's voice is urgent now, almost pleading. Mike, you need to stop talking, now. But Mike has built too much of his identity on being the tough guy to back down. Sarah's patience, infinite until now, shows its first crack. I don't need to prove anything to you, she says, and there's something in her voice that makes everyone take an involuntary step back. Everyone except Reynolds, who couldn't move if the building was on fire. Mike makes his final mistake. Prove it, he challenges, crossing his arms over his chest like a bouncer at a nightclub. Show us you're some kind of soldier. Anyone can memorize a few weapon specs. Sarah looks at the Barrett display case with an expression that might be longing or might be regret. I don't need to prove anything to you, she repeats. But Tom is already pulling out his phone with shaking hands. Ma'am, he says, Colonel Martinez is still at Fort Bragg. Would you like me to... Sarah considers for a moment, then nods. He'll remember Ghost 6, she says simply. Reynolds, still trapped by the door, looks like he might vomit. He knows that name. He knows what's coming. Tom dials with trembling fingers, the phone on speaker so everyone can hear. It rings once, twice, 3 times before a gruff voice answers. Martinez! Tom's voice cracks slightly as he speaks. Colonel? It's Tom from Tactical Solutions. I'm sorry to bother you, but I have someone here who says she's Ghost 6 Mitchell. The silence on the other end stretches for so long that people begin to wonder if the call has dropped. Then Colonel Martinez speaks, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. That's impossible, he says. Ghost 6 Mitchell is dead. I was at her memorial service. I handed a flag to her mother. The words hang in the air like a challenge, and every eye in the store turns to Sarah. Reynolds sinks into a chair, his legs no longer able to support him. He knows what's coming next, and he knows there's no escape. What Colonel Martinez was about to learn would shatter everything he thought he knew about that mission in Syria, and the ghost he thought he'd buried was about to rise from the dead. Colonel Martinez's voice breaks through the speaker like a man who's just seen the dead walk. Put her on the phone, now! Sarah takes the phone with the same steady hands that once held a rifle for 6 hours straight, her voice calm as a midnight cemetery. Hello, Colonel. The silence that follows is the kind that makes people hold their breath, afraid that even breathing might shatter something irreplaceable. Then, like a dam breaking, Jesus Christ, Sarah, we buried you. I gave a eulogy, your mother. His voice cracks, and everyone in the store can hear a hardened military commander fighting back tears. We buried an empty coffin, Sarah says simply. I know. The crowd listens to every word like congregants at the world's most unlikely church service. Reynolds, visible in the corner, trembles like a leaf in a hurricane. Operation Nightfall, the colonel continues, his voice thick with memory and something that might be guilt. You saved my entire unit. 47 men came home because of you. Sarah's discomfort with praise is visible, her shoulders tensing. I did my job, Colonel, nothing more. But Martinez won't let it go. Your job? Listen to me, everyone in that store needs to know this. Ghost 6, Sarah Mitchell, single-handedly held off 200 insurgents for 6 hours. 6 hours. Do you understand what that means? Mike's face has gone from red to white, the blood draining away as the magnitude of his mistake becomes clear. Reynolds' breathing has become rapid and shallow, like a rabbit that's just caught the scent of a wolf. The colonel's voice carries the weight of witnessed miracles. Ghost 6 was our best sniper. Ever. I've seen Medal of Honor recipients, I've served with legends, but Sarah? 1,247 confirmed kills across 3 tours. She could hit a target at 2,000 yards in a sandstorm. I watched her make a shot that physics said was impossible, through 3 windows and a chain-link fence. The bullet curved like God himself was guiding it. Sarah shifts uncomfortably, her voice firm but quiet. "Colonel, that's enough. These people don't need to—" But Martinez is beyond stopping now, the words pouring out like blood from an old wound. They need to know who they're standing next to. They need to understand. "The Syria operation," Martinez continues, and his voice drops like they're discussing sacred scripture. "Intel failure doesn't begin to cover it. We were supposed to be extracting a diplomat. Routine operation. Except someone leaked our position. Sarah was on Overwatch, supposed to be an easy day. Then all hell broke loose. 200 insurgents, maybe more. They had RPGs, heavy machine guns. They'd turned that valley into a killing field. The store has become a church, and Martinez is delivering a sermon about angels and demons. Sarah's team was hit in the first wave, 11 men down in 30 seconds. She was alone on that ridge. Reynolds stands abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor like fingernails on a chalkboard. Tom notices his distress. "Captain, you don't look well. Do you need—" Reynolds waves him off, but his face has taken on the waxy sheen of a corpse. "Aye, the heat. Need air," he mumbles. But Sarah's peripheral vision tracks his movement like a hawk tracking a mouse. For 6 hours, Martinez continues, his voice painting pictures that will haunt everyone present. Sarah was death incarnate. Every time they tried to advance on our position, another insurgent dropped. They started calling her Al-Maqt al-Abayad, the White Death. They thought there were 20 snipers on that ridge. It was just her, just one woman with a rifle and the will to keep 47 Americans alive. The colonel's voice breaks. "She took shrapnel from an RPG. Collapsed lung. Internal bleeding. Kept shooting." The medics said later that she should have been dead after hour 3, but she kept shooting. "I've got you covered," she kept saying over the radio. "I've got you covered." Reynolds stumbles backward, catching himself on the wall, his legs no longer reliable. "Her last transmission," Martinez says, and now his voice is barely a whisper that somehow fills the entire store, "was at hour 6. Extraction helicopters were inbound, but she was pinned down, couldn't make it to the LZ. She knew she was going to die. Her last words were, 'Tell my team I held the line.' Then her radio went dead. When we finally fought our way to her position—" He pauses, composing himself. "She was unconscious, in a pool of blood. 67 enemy bodies around her position. 67! The rifle was still in her hands, trigger finger still in position. She was firing on muscle memory while unconscious. Someone in the crowd whispers, 'Holy shit,' and no one bothers to correct their language. This is beyond social niceties now. This is witnessing history. The transformation in the store is complete and irreversible. Mike backs away like a man in a dream, his earlier bravado evaporated like morning dew in Death Valley. I didn't know," he stammers, but the words are inadequate, insulting in their insufficiency. Other customers are removing their hats, an unconscious gesture of respect usually reserved for churches and funeral homes. Tom's hands shake as he sets the phone on the counter. "Ma'am," he says, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry. If I had known—" Sarah's discomfort with their reverence is palpable. She came here for justice, not worship. Reynolds tries to disappear into the shadows, but in a store full of hunters, his movement only draws attention. "She's got the Medal of Honor," Martinez continues, determined to ensure everyone understands the magnitude of their mistake. "Congressional Gold Medal, 3 Purple Hearts, Distinguished Service Cross. She's the most decorated female soldier in modern history. When the president pinned that medal on her chest, he said," Martinez pauses, then quotes, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the determination that something else is more important than fear." Staff Sergeant Sarah Mitchell embodies that determination. Reynolds' knees buckle slightly, and he grabs a display case for support, rattling the weapons inside. Sarah's response is measured, controlled, designed to minimize the growing hero worship. "I just want to buy a rifle and leave," she says, her voice carrying a weariness that speaks of too many sleepless nights and too many faces that visit her dreams. "The past is the past. I'm not that person anymore." But Martinez won't let her diminish herself. "You'll always be ghost sick to us, Sarah. Always. You can't just stop being who you are." Her eyes sweep the room in a pattern that's pure tactical assessment, cataloging faces and positions with the efficiency of a computer. They pause on Reynolds for just a fraction of a second longer than the others, and he flinches like she's fired a shot. Martinez explains her disappearance with the reverence of someone discussing a saint's martyrdom. The PTSD nearly destroyed her. Survivor's guilt. She saved 47 men but lost 11. She counted every enemy kill, remembered every face. The therapist said she was carrying the weight of 258 deaths, the 11 she couldn't save, and the 247 she killed to save the rest. She requested discharge, went through 18 months of therapy, then disappeared. We respected her privacy, let her become a ghost for real, reported her KIA to protect her from the media, from the enemy, from becoming a target. She earned the right to be forgotten. Reynolds realizes with growing horror that she hasn't been forgotten at all. She's been hunting. And now he understands why she's here. What would you do if you discovered a hero hiding in plain sight? Let us know in the comments. The moment of revelation comes unexpectedly. Sarah notices the Barrett rifle's scope in the display case, her trained eye catching something others would miss. "Your display model," she says to Tom. "The scope's miscalibrated, windage is off by 2 clicks, elevation's over-adjusted by 1. Tom stares at her, then at the rifle. "How could you possibly tell that from here? That's 15 feet away, behind glass." Sarah shrugs, the gesture almost apologetic. "Muscle memory. You spent enough time with a weapon it becomes part of you, like recognizing an old friend's limp." Reynolds recognizes the assessment for what it is, not showing off, but the unconscious competence of a master craftsman noticing imperfection. To prove her point, or perhaps to end the questions, Sarah asks Tom to bring her a disassembled rifle from the workshop, any rifle. Tom complies, bringing out a complex tactical weapon in pieces. Without a word, Sarah begins assembling it. Her hands move with the fluid grace of a concert pianist, each piece finding its place with unconscious precision. 15 seconds. That's all it takes. Then, to complete the demonstration, she closes her eyes and disassembles it again, laying each piece in perfect order on the counter. "Muscle memory," she repeats quietly. "Some things you never forget." Mike watches in stunned silence, his worldview rearranging itself like tectonic plates. Reynolds knows he's watching Ghost Six at work, and the knowledge turns his bowels to water. The colonel's voice through the speaker continues painting a portrait of a legend. She never missed a shot in combat. Never. The other snipers used to joke that she could shoot the wings off a fly at 1,000 yards. But it wasn't a joke. I saw her put a round through a keyhole to take out a bomb maker. Saved a school full of children. His voice grows heavy, but every life she took carved another piece out of her soul. Every life she saved added another link to the chains she carried. That's why she disappeared. Heroes don't always get happy endings. Sometimes they just get to stop being heroes. Sarah winces at his words, and for the first time, the crowd sees her not as an unstoppable warrior, but as a human being carrying an inhuman burden. Reynolds sees it too, and understands that the weight of his betrayal is about to be added to her collection. The crowd's transformation from contempt to reverence is complete. Mike attempts an apology, the words stumbling over each other like drunks leaving a bar. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, I didn't." "If I had known." Sarah cuts him off with a gesture not unkind but firm. "You didn't know. That was the point. I wanted to be nobody, just another customer, just Sarah." Other customers are offering to pay for her purchase, as if money could somehow atone for their earlier behavior. Sarah declines each offer with quiet dignity. "I can pay for myself." I've been taking care of myself for a long time. The independence in her voice is fierce, the statement of someone who's learned that depending on others can get you killed. Reynolds remains isolated in his corner, no longer a respected regular but an outsider, marked by his fear as clearly as if he wore a sign. Tom offers the military discount reflexively, then seems to realize how inadequate the gesture is. "It's the least I can do," he says, but Sarah shakes her head. "Charge me full price. I'm a civilian now. I pay what civilians pay." The crowd parts as she moves through the store, the same people who were mocking her minutes ago now stepping aside like courtiers before royalty. Whispered conversations ripple in her wake. "That's go 6. Did you hear what the colonel said? 6 hours. Jesus." Sarah's visible discomfort with the hero worship grows with each whispered comment. She came here for a rifle and justice, not reverence. Reynolds remains trapped by the crowd that has unconsciously formed a barrier between him and the exit. A young customer, barely old enough to buy ammunition, finds the courage to ask what everyone's wondering. "Why did you come back? If you could disappear, be anyone, why come back?" Sarah pauses, considering her answer. When she speaks, her words are carefully chosen. "Sometimes the past finds you, whether you want it to or not. Sometimes you need to remember who you were to decide who you're going to be. And sometimes," she glances at Reynolds, the look sharp as a blade, "sometimes there's unfinished business that won't let you rest." Reynolds' intake of breath is audible across the store. He knows she's not here by accident. This isn't coincidence. This is a hunt, and he's the prey. Sarah turns back to the phone where Colonel Martinez waits. "There's something I need to tell you, Colonel, about Lieutenant Johnson, about why I really survived when everyone else on that ridge died." The colonel's voice drops, sensing the weight of what's coming. "Sarah, what aren't you telling me? Johnson died in the first wave. His position was overrun." Sarah's voice is steady, but there's steel underneath. "Johnson died because someone told the insurgents exactly where he'd be. Someone gave them our positions, our radio frequencies, our extraction routes. The mission wasn't just compromised, Colonel. It was sold." The store falls so quiet that the hum of the fluorescent lights sounds like thunder. Reynolds has stopped breathing entirely, his face the color of old bone. "And that person," Sarah continues, her voice carrying the weight of 3 years of investigation, 3 years of nightmares, 3 years of planning, is here, in this town. In fact," she turns slowly, her gaze finding Reynolds with the precision of a laser sight. "He's in this store." Every head turns to follow her gaze, and Reynolds stands frozen like a deer in headlights. The hunt is over. The ghost has found the man who made her one. "Hello, Captain Reynolds," she says, and her voice carries all the warmth of an open grave. "We need to talk about Operation Nightfall." The truth about Operation Nightfall was darker than anyone imagined, and Sarah's real mission was just beginning. Sarah's gaze locks onto Reynolds like a sniper's crosshairs, and everyone in the store turns to follow her line of sight. There, pressed against the wall near the exit, stands Captain James Reynolds, respected veteran, regular customer, pillar of the community. His face has gone beyond pale to a sickly gray, the color of dirty dishwater. "Hello, Captain Reynolds," Sarah repeats, her voice carrying across the store like a judge's gavel. Reynolds' mouth opens and closes, like a fish drowning in air. "Sarah, you're supposed to be dead," he manages, the words barely audible. His whole body shakes now, no longer able to hide the physical manifestation of his guilt. "I don't know what you think you know," he starts, but even he can hear how hollow the words sound. Sarah's response is sharp as shrapnel. "I know everything, James. 3 years is a long time to investigate. 3 years is a long time to plan." Colonel Martinez's voice explodes through the speakerphone. "Reynolds! James Reynolds is there! Sarah, what the hell is going on?" His confusion is palpable, the voice of a man whose world is tilting off its axis. "He was cleared in the investigation. I signed off on it myself. He was nowhere near the operational planning." Sarah's laugh is bitter as burnt coffee. "Because he ran the investigation, Colonel. Fox investigating the hen house. He made sure all the evidence pointed away from him, made sure the blame fell on dead men who couldn't defend themselves. The crowd in the store shifts restlessly, sensing violence in the air like animals before an earthquake. Mike, forgetting his earlier humiliation, steps protectively closer to Sarah. "You need backup?" he asks quietly. The transformation from tormentor to protector is complete. Sarah reaches into her pocket and pulls out a small encrypted drive, holding it up so everyone can see. 3 years of evidence, she says, her voice steady as a flat line. Communications between Captain Reynolds and Hassan al-Rashid, the insurgent commander. Bank transfers to offshore accounts in Cyprus and the Caymans. She clicks on her phone and suddenly the store's Bluetooth speakers come alive with Reynolds's voice. Tinny but unmistakable. "The extraction will be at grid reference 3279 at 1400 hours. Minimal security on the eastern approach." Another voice responds in accented English. "And you're certain Mitchell will be isolated on Overwatch?" Reynolds' recorded voice again. "Ghost 6 will be alone on the ridge. Easy target." The recording cuts off, leaving silence so complete it feels like a physical weight. Reynolds' desperate attempt at denial crumbles like ancient paper. "You can't prove that's me. Voice recordings can be faked, deepfakes, AI." But Sarah's already pulling up images on her phone, casting them to the store's display screen, normally used for promotional videos. There's Reynolds meeting with known insurgent leaders in a Damascus coffee shop. There's Reynolds accessing classified operational files days before the mission. There's Reynolds' bank account, suddenly flush with cash deposits, structured just below reporting limits. "Every meeting documented," Sarah says calmly. "Every transmission recorded, every dollar traced. Did you really think you could sell out your brothers and sisters and walk away clean?" The colonel's voice through the speaker has gone from confused to enraged. "My God," he breathes, and everyone can hear pieces clicking into place in his mind. The intel delays during the mission, the equipment failures during extraction, the radio frequencies that kept getting compromised. "It was you. It was always you." His voice rises to a roar. 12 soldiers died because of you." The accusation hangs in the air like a physical presence. Sarah adds quietly, 11 died, 1 survived to hunt you down." The crowd in the store has transformed from audience to jury, their faces hard with judgment. Tom quietly walks to the door and flips the lock. "Nobody leaves until this is sorted," he announces. Reynolds' exit is now truly blocked. "I had debts," Reynolds explodes, his carefully maintained facade finally cracking completely. "Gambling debts? They were going to kill my family. You don't understand what they threatened to do to my daughter." His attempt at justification falls flat in a room full of people who understand that some lines cannot be crossed. "So you let them kill mine instead." Sarah's voice remains level, but there's magma beneath the surface. "Johnson had 3 daughters. Martinez had a son. Blake was 22 years old, first deployment. They all had families, James. What made yours worth more than theirs?" Reynolds has no answer, only the desperate excuses of a man who sold his soul and is trying to haggle over the price. "You knew enough to request emergency leave 2 days before the mission," Sarah continues, each word a nail in Reynolds' coffin. "Family emergency, you said. Your daughter's appendicitis. Except the hospital has no record of treating her. You weren't at any hospital. You were at the Syrian border, collecting your blood money while we bled out in that valley." She shows another image on the screen. Reynolds at a border checkpoint, timestamp clearly visible. "You left us to die, then came back to run the investigation into your own crime. How many nights did you sleep soundly while our families cried themselves empty?" Sarah's phone rings, and she answers it on speaker. A crisp female voice fills the store. "Agent Chen, FBI, Ghost 6, are you getting the confession?" Sarah glances at her phone. "Copy that, he's talking now." The revelation that this is a sting operation, that Sarah has been working with federal authorities, sends another shockwave through the crowd. Reynolds realizes he's been played, that every word he's spoken has been recorded, that the trap was set long before he walked into this store. "How long?" he asks, his voice broken. "How long have you been hunting me?" Sarah's answer is simple. "Since the day I could walk again. Since the day I could hold a rifle without shaking. Since the day I decided justice was worth more than peace." What would you do if you discovered a war hero seeking justice? Share your thoughts below. The names of the dead become a litany, A prayer, a curse. Sarah pulls up photos on her phone, casting them to the screen one by one. 12 faces appear, young men in uniform, smiling at cameras, unaware their fates were being sold for 30 pieces of silver times 66,000. Staff Sergeant Marcus Johnson, she intones. Specialist David Martinez. Private First Class Aaron Blake. With each name, Reynolds seems to shrink, his body folding in on itself. The crowd watches in silence as Sarah continues through all 12 names, each one a weight added to the scales of justice. By the time she finishes, Reynolds has collapsed into a chair, sobbing like a child. "Do you know what 6 hours feels like?" Sarah asks, her voice soft but carrying to every corner of the store. Every second stretching like an hour, every minute another chance to fail. Watching through my scope as insurgents overran positions I couldn't protect, hearing my brothers scream over the radio and knowing I couldn't save them all. Feeling my lung collapse and knowing if I stopped shooting everyone died. 6 hours, James. 6 hours of hell because you needed money. She pauses, letting the weight of it sink in. I've lived those 6 hours every night for 3 years. Now you get to live with them for the rest of your life, however long that is in federal prison. The store patrons react with a mix of rage and sorrow. A Vietnam veteran in the corner says quietly, "In my day we had a different way of handling traitors." Others nod agreement, the mood turning darker. Tom steps forward, ever the peacekeeper. "The lady's doing this the right way," he says firmly. "Through the law. That's what separates us from them." But the tension remains thick. Violence hovering just beneath the surface like sharks beneath calm water. Reynolds must feel it too, because he looks at Sarah with something approaching gratitude for her restraint. "You could have just killed me," he whispers. "A sniper of your skill? Why didn't you?" Sarah's answer cuts deeper than any bullet. "Because I'm a soldier, not a murderer. Because my brothers deserve justice, not vengeance. Because I refuse to become you." Sarah reveals the depth of her investigation with the methodical precision of a prosecutor. 18 months undercover, new identity, new town, patience of a saint, and memory of an elephant. "I knew you'd retired here. Knew you felt safe. Knew you shopped at this store every Tuesday." She smiles, but it doesn't reach her eyes. "Did you think it was coincidence I walked in today? That I asked for the Barrett? I knew you'd be here. Knew you'd recognize the model. Knew guilt would make you react." The calculated nature of her hunt becomes clear. Every move planned, every word chosen to provoke a response. She turned herself into bait to catch a predator. "I couldn't trust anyone in the command structure," she continues. "Didn't know how deep the rot went, who else you might have corrupted. So I disappeared, let everyone think I was dead, worked with FBI counterintelligence, building the case piece by piece." She shows another image, an organizational chart with red lines connecting multiple names. "You weren't working alone. Your handler had connections throughout CENTCOM. But you were the weakest link, the one who'd crack when faced with a ghost." Reynolds looks at the chart and goes even paler, realizing how many others are about to fall. "They said they'd kill my family," he repeats weakly. "They gave you a choice," Sarah counters. "You chose wrong." The sound of sirens grows louder, and through the store windows FBI vehicles become visible, surrounding the building like antibodies responding to infection. Agents in tactical gear take positions. The sting operation reaches its climax. "James Reynolds!" Agent Chen's voice comes through the phone. "You're under arrest for treason, conspiracy to commit murder, and 12 counts of felony murder." The formal charges sound like a funeral bell. Reynolds doesn't resist as agents enter the store. What's the point? He's been caught by a ghost, judged by the dead, condemned by his own words. As they cuff him, he looks one last time at Sarah. "I'm sorry," he says, but the words are ashes in his mouth. "Tell that to their families," Sarah responds. "Tell that to their children." As Reynolds is led away, Sarah finally allows herself a moment of vulnerability. Her shoulders sag slightly, the weight of 3 years of hunting suddenly visible. "It's over," she breathes, more to herself than anyone else. They can rest now. Tom approaches carefully, recognizing the fragility of the moment. "What happens to you now?" he asks gently. Sarah looks at the Barrett rifle in the case, then at the FBI agents securing the scene. I thought I knew, she admits. Thought I'd feel different, complete, but there's just emptiness. Agent Chen approaches, her expression sympathetic but professional. There's more, Sarah. Reynolds gave us names, other operations that were compromised. We need your help. The war isn't over. It never is. The crowd in the store has become witnesses to history, participants in a drama they never expected. Mike approaches Sarah hesitantly. Ma'am, I know my apology doesn't mean much after how I acted, but thank you for your service, for this, for showing us who you really are. Sarah looks at him, and for the first time since entering the store, offers a genuine smile. You showed me who you really are too, she says. People can surprise you, sometimes for worse, sometimes for better. The lesson isn't lost on anyone present. Assumptions nearly let a traitor walk free. Assumptions prevented a hero from buying a simple rifle. Assumptions kill. Sarah Mitchell thought her war was over, but sometimes the most important battles come when you think you've already won. Agent Chen approaches Sarah as the last of the crime scene tape is strung across the store entrance. The FBI agent is younger than Sarah expected, maybe 30, with eyes that have seen too much for her age. The corruption goes higher than Reynolds, Chen says quietly, ensuring only Sarah can hear. Pentagon officials, defense contractors, senators on the Armed Services Committee. We're talking about billions in illegal arms deals, American weapons ending up in enemy hands, operations compromised across 3 continents. She pauses, studying Sarah's face. We need someone they'll never suspect is alive. Someone with the skills to get close, gather evidence, disappear like smoke. Sarah feels the weight of another war settling on her shoulders like an old, familiar coat. I came here to end this chapter, she says, exhaustion creeping into her voice. I'm tired of being Ghost 6, tired of being anyone except Sarah Mitchell, civilian. Chen's response is gentle but urgent. Hundreds of soldiers' lives are at stake, maybe thousands. The network Reynolds was part of is still operating, still selling out operations, still getting Americans killed for profit. She shows Sarah a tablet with casualty reports from the last 6 months. Red dots mark compromised operations across the globe. Every one of these was preventable. Every one was betrayed from inside. Sarah studies the data, her tactical mind already identifying patterns despite her exhaustion. The wounded warrior in her wants to walk away, to find peace in anonymity. But the soldier sees the mission isn't complete. You don't leave wounded on the battlefield, and America is bleeding from wounds inflicted by its own. The store has become a sanctuary of sorts, the gathered crowd forming an unexpected council. Tom, the Vietnam veteran manager, speaks first. Ma'am, you've done enough, more than enough. Nobody could ask for more. Mike, transformed from tormentor to admirer, adds his voice. You've earned the right to rest, to be just Sarah. The Vietnam veteran customer in the corner nods slowly. Sometimes heroes get to retire. Sometimes they get to find peace. Sarah listens to their words, weighing them against the images on Chen's tablet. Each red dot represents lives that might be saved. Each data point is a family that might not have to receive a folded flag. The arithmetic of duty is cruel in its simplicity. Colonel Martinez's voice still emanates from the speakerphone, forgotten in the drama but still connected. Sarah, you've given everything, lost your identity, your peace, your chance at a normal life. But you're the only one who can stop this. You've seen behind the curtain. You know how they operate. His voice drops, heavy with the weight of command. The choice is yours. It always has been. That's what makes you who you are. Not the rifle, not the skills. The choice to stand when everyone else would understand if you sat down. Sarah looks around the store, at the faces watching her with something between awe and sympathy. Even Reynolds, visible through the window in the back of an FBI vehicle, seems to be waiting for her decision. The weight of legacy presses down like atmospheric pressure before a storm. Ghost 6 saved 47 lives in Syria, but how many more could she save now? How many young soldiers would come home because Sarah Mitchell chose to remain a ghost? The philosophical question torments her. Is Ghost 6 who she is, or merely what circumstances forced her to become? Can a weapon ever truly be retired, or does it simply wait in the armory for the next war? Agent Chen waits with the patience of someone who understands the magnitude of what she's asking. This isn't just about one more mission. It's about choosing to remain in purgatory between the living and the dead. Should Sarah take on one final mission? What would you do in her place? Sarah turns to the Barrett rifle display, the weapon that started this afternoon's odyssey. "I'll take it," she says to Tom. "The rifle. I came here to buy a rifle, and that's what I'm going to do." Tom's hands shake slightly as he processes the transaction. "No charge, ma'am. It's the least—" Sarah cuts him off with a look that brooks no argument. "I pay my own way, always have, always will." She pulls out cash, exact change, counted out with the same precision she once used to calculate wind speed and bullet drop. The receipt prints with a mundane whir, this simple commercial transaction somehow carrying more weight than million-dollar weapons deals. She signs it Sarah Mitchell, not Ghost 6. The pen strokes are deliberate, a declaration of identity. The symbolism isn't lost on the crowd. Sarah's insistence on paying, on completing the original transaction that brought her here, speaks to something fundamental about her character. She didn't come for handouts or hero worship. She came to buy a rifle, and found justice along the way. Mike watches the exchange with something approaching enlightenment. "We're going to change how we do things here," he tells Tom quietly. "Everyone gets respect. Everyone. You never know who you're talking to." Tom nods, already planning to post a sign. Everyone deserves dignity. The ripple effects of this afternoon will spread far beyond these walls. The local news vans are arriving now, drawn by the FBI presence and the promise of a story. Sarah looks at them with distaste. This was never about fame or recognition. But Agent Chen sees an opportunity. "If you're going to help us," she says, "maybe it's time Ghost 6 stopped hiding. Maybe transparency is the best armor." Sarah considers this, the idea of stepping into the light after so long in shadows. "I have conditions," she finally says. "No more fake deaths, no more lies. I do this as Sarah Mitchell, publicly, openly. If I'm going to root out corruption, I won't do it from the shadows. Shadows are where the Reynolds of the world operate. I'll do this in the light." The philosophical weight of her decision resonates through the store. Ghost 6 was who she had to be. The invisible hand of justice, the unknown soldier. Sarah Mitchell is who she chooses to be. Visible, accountable, human. "The world needs to know heroes are real," she continues, "that ordinary people can stand up to corruption, that one person can make a difference. If I hide, if I remain a ghost, then Reynolds wins, fear wins. But if Sarah Mitchell, citizen, takes this case, maybe others will find the courage to stand up too." Agent Chen nods slowly, understanding the power of symbol becoming substance. Sarah pulls her Medal of Honor from her pocket, where she's kept it hidden for 3 years, and pins it to her jacket. The bronze star catches the fluorescent lights, transforming them into something almost holy. The store falls silent at the sight of the nation's highest military honor, worn openly, proudly, defiantly. It's more than decoration, it's declaration. The ghost is choosing to become flesh again. Mike extends his hand, the same hand that hours ago was dismissive and mocking. "It's an honor, ma'am," he says, his voice thick with emotion. Sarah takes his hand, her grip firm but not punishing. "Just call me Sarah," she says. "That's all I ever wanted to be." The handshake is simple, human, profound in its ordinariness. What does true heroism look like to you? Share your thoughts about Sarah's choice. Agent Chen outlines the challenges ahead with the clinical precision of someone who deals in dangerous truths. The next phase won't be easy. Congressional testimony, death threats from those still in the network, media attention that will dissect every moment of your life. You'll be testifying against people with unlimited resources and no moral boundaries. Sarah's response is immediate and tinged with dark humor. "I've survived worse. At least Congress doesn't shoot back." But the joke can't hide the weight of what she's accepting. To step into the light means becoming a target again. This time, without the protection of anonymity or the shield of death. The unanswered questions multiply like cancer cells. How deep does the corruption go? How many other operations have been compromised? How many Reynolds are out there, selling out their brothers and sisters for silver? Chen shows Sarah glimpses of the investigation's scope on her tablet, red lines connecting military officials to defense contractors to foreign agents. It's a web that would make a spider proud, and Sarah is volunteering to walk into its center. Can one person really change a system? Mike asks, voicing what everyone's thinking. Sarah's answer is simple. One person with evidence can. One person with the courage to speak truth can. One person who refuses to let the darkness win can. It's not about being superhuman. It's about being human and choosing to act anyway. The store will never be the same. Tom's already planning to frame the receipt, to put up a plaque. On this day, Go 6 revealed herself and chose justice over peace. It will become a pilgrimage site of sorts, a place where people come to remember that heroes walk among us, that assumptions can be deadly, that respect costs nothing but can mean everything. The story will be told and retold, growing in the telling, but the truth will remain constant. A woman seeking to buy a rifle ended up saving democracy from its own corruption. Mike will become the store's unofficial historian, telling anyone who'll listen about the day he learned the most important lesson of his life. Sarah walks toward the door, her new rifle case in hand, dignity radiating from every step. The crowd parts respectfully, but this time it's different from earlier. Then they moved aside in awe of Ghost 6, the legendary sniper. Now they step back out of respect for Sarah Mitchell, citizen, who chose to serve again when she had every right to disappear. No one asks for autographs or photos. Some moments are too sacred for souvenirs. Some encounters change you in ways that can't be captured on film. The transformation is internal, personal, permanent. At the door, Sarah turns back one last time. Mike asks what everyone's wondering. Think we'll see you again? Tom answers before Sarah can, his voice carrying the certainty of someone who's seen enough of life to recognize patterns. Heroes don't disappear, he says. They just wait for when they're needed most. Sarah allows herself a small smile. Besides, she adds, I'll need ammunition for the Barrett. This is my local gun store now. The promise of return, of normalcy mixed with purpose, offers hope that heroes can have both identity and mission, that Sarah Mitchell and Ghost 6 can coexist. The store empties slowly, each person carrying with them a piece of the afternoon's revelation. They'll go home to families, to ordinary lives, but they'll carry the knowledge that extraordinary people walk among them, that the quiet woman in line at the grocery store might have saved lives, that the man serving coffee might have stories that would humble kings, that respect given freely costs nothing but might mean everything to someone carrying invisible wounds. The lesson spreads like ripples from a stone dropped in still water. As the last customer leaves and Tom prepares to close early, some days are too heavy for normal business hours, he looks at the spot where Sarah stood and delivered justice. The Barrett rifle display case stands empty, its contents now in the hands of someone who truly understands its purpose. The receipt sits in the register, a mundane record of an extraordinary day. Sarah Mitchell, he reads aloud, just a name. Just a woman. Just a hero who chose to be human. The flag outside the store waves in the evening breeze, and for the first time in years, Tom salutes it before locking up. The questions linger in the air like incense in an empty church. What other heroes walk among us unrecognized? What other stories remain untold because we're too busy making assumptions to listen? How many legends hide in plain sight, wearing ordinary faces and carrying extraordinary burdens? Sarah Mitchell walked into a gun store as a mystery. She left as a legend. But the real question isn't who she was or who she'll become. It's who we choose to see when we look at the strangers around us. Because sometimes the most powerful people are the quietest ones. Sometimes heroes look like everyone else. Sometimes the person you dismiss might be the one who saved your life without you ever knowing it. The gun store stands quiet now, but its walls hold the echo of revelation. A simple transaction became a reckoning. A Tuesday afternoon became legendary. And somewhere in America, Sarah Mitchell drives toward her next mission. No longer a ghost, but not quite human either. Something in between. Something necessary. something that reminds us that in the space between who we were and who we choose to be, heroes are born. Not in the grand gestures, but in the quiet choice to stand when sitting would be understandable, to speak when silence would be safer, to serve when retiring would be reasonable. Some purchases change everything. Some moments define not just lives, but the very idea of what it means to be human in an inhuman world. Today, in a gun store in suburban America, Sarah Mitchell bought a rifle. But what she really purchased was the right to be both legend and woman, both Ghost 6 and Sarah, both weapon and human being. And in that purchase, she taught everyone present that heroes aren't born, they're forged in the crucible of choice, one decision at a time, one bullet at a time, one act of courage at a time. The war continues. It always does. But now it has a face, a name, a choice made in the light instead of the shadows. Sarah Mitchell, American citizen, walks toward tomorrow carrying the weight of yesterday and the hope of tomorrow. And somewhere in the silence between heartbeats, Ghost 6 smiles and chambers another round.
Mình biết rằng có nhiều bạn nam đang theo dõi series này. Mình là Daisy và mình tin rằng hiểu được câu chuyện của người phụ nữ sẽ giúp chúng ta trở thành một người đàn ông tốt hơn. A Simple Woman, subscribe để khám phá nội tâm phong phú này nhé.